Right now, I want to bring in Gerald Griggs. He's a lawyer for the family of Joycelyn Savage. And thank you so much for joining us on this day, of course, that many people have been waiting for. R. Kelly has faced allegations of sexually abusing minors since 1996. That's nearly 2.5 decades. Were you surprised this case made it to trial? And what do you think about this verdict that we're hearing now about this racketeering charge?
No, we weren't surprised that the case made it to trial, and we are pleased with the outcome of at least the initial charge. We look forward to hearing the rest of the charges, but this is the process of bringing Mr. Kelly to justice. And so I've already been on the phone with many of my clients. Of course, they were in such nerves and such trepidation for this day, but I can hear them as we're speaking, talking about the relief that he's been found guilty of the racketeering charge. We're hopeful that the other charges, and we are anxious for the other cases against Mr. Kelly. This was a process of victims bringing forward evidence, the prosecution believing that evidence, and now the jury believing that evidence. So it took 20 years. It took numerous families, numerous victims, but their voice has been heard.
All right, so now that he's been found guilty, what do you think is the appropriate sentencing? How much time do you think he needs to serve?
He needs to serve the maximum amount of time. He's damaged so many lives. He's ruined so many families. If you only knew about the level of pressure that was on these families, on these victims from the very beginning, many people not wanting to believe them, many people victim shaming them. But now in a court of law, after hearing evidence, Mr. Kelly has been brought to justice. So they're seeking maximum time. I will continue to comfort them and aid them, and we will think about our next steps legally. But we are satisfied with the results of this and the job that the prosecution did.
So it doesn't matter that it's racketeering, because let's face it, all the experts have said this is a roundabout way. What he actually, people believe he actually did, is different from the true definition of racketeering. What are your thoughts on him being convicted of racketeering as opposed to the charges that he's been brought up all these years, which is, of course, accused of abusing these young women?
Well, it was a process of abusing the women through the use of his celebrity and the use of his enablers and the use of the people around him. So we think racketeering was the appropriate charge. And you have to remember, this is the first of 4 cases. So the other underlying charges, the more serious charges, will be addressed in the Northern District of Illinois. But he used his celebrity to entrap young women for the purpose of underage sex. And so we believe that it was the appropriate charge. And we listened to the experts, but the experts didn't know the evidence. We've known this evidence for 20 years. We've listened to witness after witness after witness. We've spoken to family after family. So with all due respect to the experts, the evidence spoke for itself, and now the jury is speaking.
And I do want to ask you why you think it took so long to get to this point. I mean, years and years have gone by. A lot of this information has been out there. It's been in the public. People have known about it. Why did it take this long? Why now, finally, there is a guilty verdict for R. Kelly?
It took brave family members, brave victims forward. It took the media to appropriately report this. It took lawyers to come to the forefront. But more importantly, it took the pressure of the public to see what was happening in broad daylight and to hold R. Kelly accountable for his crimes. So I'm ashamed that it took this long. But for many of those years, many of the lawyers that are working this case were not lawyers. And so we are now lawyers. We are fully grown. We brought that evidence to a court of law, to the prosecutors. And now we've seen a verdict that speaks the truth. We've seen a shift in the community's awareness about these issues and the ability to hold people accountable. So I think this is just the beginning. And I am hopeful that my clients are in the process of healing through this step of accountability for Mr. Kelly.
Will this help your clients heal?
I think so. Anytime that you are able to get justice, it's a process. And I think this is a process of justice. I think that they've been seeking this day for such a very long time. There's a lot of emotion involved, but ultimately their voices have been heard. So I believe that they're on the process of healing, and this first step in justice is very important.
And let's talk about their voices, because many people said, these are young black women and their voices are not heard. And they are not people who would be able to speak out and be believed by the masses. Do you see this as changing, that now these young black women are going to change the way that trials move forward?
I think they've changed the attitude of prosecutors on what they can present and what they can get convictions on. And we're not so much interested in changing the greater society. We want to change the viewpoint of the individuals that are charged with upholding justice. That's the prosecutors, that's the judge, that's the jury. And so I think this conviction starts that process. We believe the victims from the very beginning. We had to start a process through which law enforcement believed them and law enforcement started to move.
So how much of him being a celebrity, being the big star that he is, R. Kelly, the famous R&B singer, how much of that impacted what happened in terms of, as you said, getting people to believe, the police to believe, the investigators? How much of that celebrity issue was a factor in everything that's happened here?
I think it was a big factor. I think that many people believed that he was untouchable, believed that he was Teflon. But at the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. And when you bring the facts forward under a microscope and under the crucible of trial, that comes forward. This was not a trial in Cook County in state court. This is a trial in federal court. And they had thoroughly investigated this case. They had spoken to so many victims, so many witnesses, many of which testified, but some did not testify. There were 46 witnesses. So you have to understand that there was a pattern and practice happening here, and they proved it to a jury. So I think that his celebrity played a role in preventing that initially, but I think once the evidence started to roll, people started to understand he had to be held accountable.
The first and foremost thing is these victims. Obviously, that's what counts here, is these victims are getting justice. But I have to ask the question, there are still people who are R. Kelly fans. His music is still played. What should people be doing now that he is convicted and guilty? Do you expect radio stations to stop playing his music, for people to stop downloading his music? I mean, what's the bigger picture here in terms of R. Kelly, who was an icon musically, who has been accused for years of different issues, but now finally a guilty verdict? What's the bigger picture in terms of what people are responsible for in terms of whether or not to continue to promote his music?
Well, I mean, that's a personal decision for his fans, for the music industry. They have to deal with what they've enabled for so many generations. But I think with regard to the victims, I think people need to think about the individuals that they wanted to push to the side and say they weren't important. Those individuals' lives were important. And that's the message that this jury is sending. And so I think as a community, we have to embrace them. We have to make sure that their voice continues to be heard. And if that means that people have to make personal decisions, they have to make those personal decisions. I've made my decision. I'm not playing the music. The music spoke for itself. He told you in plain view what was happening. And so I think that people have to take a long, hard look in the mirror about what they want to accept and what they're not going to accept. But I think as far as the allegations that have now been proven against Mr. Robert Sylvester Kelly in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt, people need to take a very strong, hard look on how they're responding.
And what about the bigger picture as well in terms of black celebrities? Let's face it, the O.J. Simpson trial was huge. People said he got away with that because he had celebrity and money. You can't say that now with R. Kelly. And then, of course, there was the Bill Cosby trial where people said he was unfairly attacked and other people said he should have been put away for a long time. Where does R. Kelly fit in the whole discussion of black celebrity and crime?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question as far as celebrity and crime. What I can answer is the question that this jury just answered. And with regard to Robert Sylvester Kelly, he's now been convicted. Bill Cosby's case, O.J. Simpson's case have nothing to do with what happened to Robert Sylvester Kelly. This is about listening to the voices of the victims and to center them. And so, with regard to celebrity and fame and crime, this was about crimes that were perpetrated primarily against African Americans by an African American. This individual was held because of his crimes, separate and apart from his celebrity and anything else. So I think that that's what needs to be reinforced, and the voices of the victims should be centered.
Let's talk about the racketeering charge. Explain to us exactly what that is.
He's charged with running a criminal enterprise whose sole purpose was to elicit underage sex from young women. And so they allege and prove that he used his celebrity, his ability to tour, his ability to make music to lure individuals for the purpose of underage sex and fly them across state lines. They proved this by bringing in former members of his entourage, individuals that worked for him, and other people that testified to the process upon which he groomed and flew and procured these individuals. So the purpose of the racketeering was to attack the criminal organization. I know a lot of people have had discussion saying you can't be a criminal organization with only one person charged. Many of the others were unindicted co-conspirators. They may very well may be held accountable. There are other trials that will take place. So the purpose of the racketeering charge was to show the pattern of behavior for a long period of time and to hold him accountable for that pattern of behavior.
And I did want to ask you about the other people involved, because you heard so much of other people who were helping him or being told to do things for him. What happens to those people? Do the victims want to go after those people as well, or is it only about R. Kelly?
Well, at this point, all legal options are on the table. Our focus primarily was to get a conviction, in this case, to reunite a family with their daughter who still has not been reunited, and then to pursue any other legal options available. So all options are on the table. But at this point, we are focused on holding Mr. Kelly accountable, which was done earlier today. And then we will regroup and think about the next part of our legal strategy.